They broke the rule at 3:17 Galactic Standard Time, and within 72 minutes, 7 civilizations were gone. The Tarsari didn't mean to break the rule. No one ever did. But the thing about the rule was that it wasn't about intent. It was about sound. Deep in the Perseus arm of the Milky Way, where the stars stretched thin like brittle bone, the Tarsari mining fleet, Ophrex 11, detonated a Class 5 plasma charge into an unstable gravity shelf. The blast fractured a dwarf moon and created a sonic cascade so violent it rang across subspace like a war drum. Most species wouldn't have noticed. The humans did. And that was the problem. Vax'il Kaur, High Commander of the Ophrex operation, stood frozen before a hollow projection of the rippling energy signature. His mouth split open in horror, mandibles twitching. "Shut it off," he croaked. "Shut it off now." The sensor techs around him, dozens of highly trained, genetically perfected minds, simply stared. The signal wasn't on. It wasn't broadcasting. It was a reverberation. "You don't understand," said Vax'il. "We didn't just hit the core. We screamed." A junior analyst blinked. "Commander, it's not aimed at anything. It's just residual noise. Physics." Vax'il spun, pointing to the center of the swirling diagram where a black orb shimmered ominously. "That isn't physics. That is the Terran zone. You know what the Terran zone means." The analyst faltered. "That old spacer tale?" "No. The one rule. Do not wake the humans." It was etched into the Galactic Codex, buried beneath centuries of diplomatic archives, often mocked, often ignored, until someone did. And then no one laughed again. Every civilization had a version of the story. One empire called it the silence before the fire. Another spoke of a solar grave, where 1,000,000 ships vanished after chirping too loud. The Odinari had once run a test signal through that sector. Nothing aggressive, just a high-frequency ping. The ping was never answered. But every Odinari station that had transmitted it vanished. No remains. No wreckage. Just an expanding zone of total absence. And so, over millennia, a consensus was born, not enforced by war, but by terror. Not through treaties, but absence. You did not fly near Sector Theta, Phi 27. You did not scan the old blue star. And above all, you did not make a sound. "Contact Central. Full protocol override," Vax'il barked. "Dispatch a silence beacon to all adjacent systems." He turned to the engineering team. "We're scrubbing the mines. I want every plasma charge offline in 60 seconds. Too late. From the deepest edge of their gravity sensors, a pulse was detected. A response. It wasn't a weapon. Not yet. It was worse. It was a question. A single quantum tremor that echoed across the stars, felt in the marrow of every living being that ever wondered what slept in the dark. It said, "Who screamed?" Halfway across the galaxy, in a hidden Dyson shell relay cloaked in a red dwarf's corona, the Zalari Senate convened in emergency session. They were the oldest continuous governing body in the galaxy, 300,000 years of unbroken rule. They had survived the Dronax extinction, the Mind Wars, the collapse of light, even the black hole concordats. They would not survive this. "Was it confirmed?" asked Senator Tothran in a voice that quivered, despite his 7 vocal cords. A hologram flickered. "Sector Theta, Phi 27. 3 faint red lines spiderwebbed out from its epicenter. One intersected Tarsari space. One cut through Zalari trade routes. The third. It pierced through 7 war-fortified systems, each fortified to withstand a planetary extinction, and came to rest above an unnamed gas giant orbiting a dying star. Except, the planet wasn't unnamed. Not really. Humans called it home. Captain Nari Zul of the Intergalactic Peace Corps watched the feed in silence. She was an Itran hybrid, one of the Warborn, bred for speed and nerve. But this shook her. "Are we sure the signal originated from us?" she asked. The Tarsari representative nodded. We detonated a drill burst into an unstable gravitational fissure. We didn't know. You didn't know you were detonating near the Terran boundary? We mapped it. Vaxel shouted, almost pleading. The shelf was safe. Nothing on any chart indicated proximity to Terran markers. Because no one marks the Terran zone on charts. Nori snapped. We erase it. We forget it. That's the only way to survive it. A warning pulse shuddered through the station. Nori turned to the main viewport. A sliver of light, impossibly distant, was now visible where before there had been only void. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a signal. It was a change. The Terran system was awake. Fortress World Zathrox Prime activated its planetary defense grid. 7 trillion kilojoules of shielding surged into place. Dozens of orbital fleets began shifting into combat formations. Planetary governors screamed into their comms as they scrambled to evacuate civilians. At 5:08 Gulf Standard Time, an incoming object entered their long-range net. Speed: immeasurable. Size: unknown. Signature: human. Launch countermeasures, ordered Grand Marshal Lervec. They fired plasmanets, gravity lances, singularity hooks, quantum destabilizers, and a barrage of hypermines. None made contact. Not because the object dodged. Because the object wasn't there anymore. It had moved through them. Not past. Through. Tarsari homeworld. 11 hours post-breach. The skies went dark at noon. Not clouds. Not storms. Just darkness. Stars disappeared. Satellites went silent. The sun dimmed as though something massive blocked its light. But nothing showed on sensors. Then a sound began. Not loud. Not piercing. Just present, like a hum heard through your bones. People clutched their heads. Plants wilted. Buildings cracked. All the while, the same message played across every screen, broadcast tower, and neural implant simultaneously. In English. In human. This is a courtesy notice. You have breached quarantine. Please stand by for retribution. On board the Zathrox flagship Glorious Remnant, Admiral Carlin gripped the arms of his command throne. Are we being attacked? He demanded. No, his science officer said, eyes hollow. They're not firing. No, she repeated. They're not doing anything. They're just here. The Admiral turned to the viewport and saw it. A single human ship. Not massive. Not a dreadnought. It was ancient. Crude. Made of metals the galaxy hadn't used in centuries. It didn't shimmer or blaze. It didn't carry banners or emit death fields. It just sat there. Unmoving. Watching. Like something that didn't need to fight to win. Like something waiting. And then the question came again. Who screamed? But this time, it was directed. The voice didn't just echo. It penetrated. Minds fractured. Memories twisted. Nori Zul's translator implant began to bleed data across her eyes. Human dialects, military transcripts, nuclear codes, historical fragments of Earth wars long past. She screamed as her mind buckled under the sheer weight of humanity's history. She saw trenches. Fire. Ice. Famine. Fury. Rebellions against gods. Victories over extinction. She saw Earth's worst days, and realized none of them had happened in space. This was a species that had nearly destroyed itself just trying to organize dinner. And now it was awake. One by one, systems began to fall silent. Not from attack. From absence. Worlds simply vanished, unmapped, unreachable, as if plucked from reality. Fleet commanders screamed into dead channels. Political alliances crumbled in moments. No one knew what to defend, because no one knew what the rules were anymore. That was the thing about humans. They didn't play by the galaxy's rules. They didn't ask permission. They didn't warn you. They just showed up, and kept going until the enemy stopped moving, or Earth stopped breathing. And Earth had just woken up from a very long nap. In a secret vault on a forbidden moon, the archivists of Zenda unsealed the one file they were never allowed to read. Only in case of total existential collapse could it be accessed. It was one line, written in human script, marked in Terran red. Do not disturb. We're trying to sleep. If woken, we are not responsible for what happens next. The Tarsari High Council tried to issue a galactic apology, a formal declaration of ignorance. It never transmitted. Their world turned silent mid-sentence. No light. No heat. Just pause. As if reality was holding its breath. And then, boom. Zathrox Prime's orbital defenses ignited, not from enemy fire, but from within. Systems detonated. Ship reactors ruptured like infected wounds. And above it all, a single Terran transmission played across every frequency. We tried to warn you. This is your first and last mistake. And just before the final feed from Zathrox went dark, the Admiral saw the human ship move. But it wasn't the speed that terrified him. It was the expression on the face of the lone human standing on its hull, arms crossed, helmet off. He looked annoyed. As if being woken up wasn't worth this much trouble. Cliffhanger. In the ruins of a Tarsari relay beacon, a last-ditch emergency protocol activates. Not to stop the humans. To appease them. A signal fires toward the old Earth relay, encoded with ancient pre-contact Terran frequency. It reads, "We're sorry. Please go back to sleep." But it's too late. Because from the Terran vessel, now parked above the Galactic Senate, a new voice is heard. It's laughing. And it says, "Nah. We're up now." The laughter didn't end. It wasn't loud or cruel. It was casual. Confident. The sound of someone reading the first page of a horror novel and realizing they were the monster. Across thousands of worlds, across dozens of species and dominions, a single terrible truth settled in like ash after a supernova. The humans weren't coming. They were already here. And they were no longer pretending to be asleep. The Galactic Senate, a space station larger than most planets, went into full emergency lockdown. Defense shields flared. Anti-orbital cannons rotated into position. Emergency hyperlane corridors opened, ready to evacuate the Council. But no one moved. Because hovering just beyond their range, motionless in the void, was the last thing any of them expected. A Terran corvette. Rusting. Ancient. Outfitted with armor 2,000 years out of date. It was wrong. It was like being threatened by a predator wearing the bones of its own prey. And yet, the ship's presence was rewriting the rules of reality. Artificial gravity flickered. Chrono devices began to tick out of sync. One senator's blood crystallized mid-speech. The Terran vessel wasn't using weapons. It was reality that was rejecting them. Inside the ship, the crew finally stirred. There were only 6 of them. 6 humans. They stood in a half-lit command deck, scattered around consoles coated in dust and time. Most wore mismatched uniforms from wars long since forgotten. Captain Alira Thorne, eyes still red from cryosleep, rolled her neck, cracked her knuckles, and squinted at the view outside. "Did someone wake us up early?" "Looks like it," grunted Sergeant Maddox, loading shells the size of a small dog into an autocannon like he was feeding a toaster. "Remind me what the standing orders were if the galaxy got noisy again." Alira stared out at the Senate. Her eyes narrowed. "Make it quiet." Back in the Senate chambers, a desperate strategy began to form. "They're only 6, spat Admiral Trallick of the Gorn Dominion. "We outnumber them trillions to 1. We have quantum fleets, macrofabricators, civilization-tier AI." Senator Law of the Zalari leaned forward, shaking. "You don't understand. They don't need numbers. They are the weapon." "Then we kill the weapon," growled Trallick. He slammed a talon into the command pad, and 50 dreadnoughts dropped out of hyperspace. war machines the size of moons, bristling with enough firepower to sterilize galaxies. Fire. They did. And for a moment, it looked like the galaxy had teeth after all. Beams of antimatter, chronodistortion lances, Corsica torpedoes. All of it surged toward the Terran vessel. And then, stopped. Not exploded. Not dodged. Not shielded. Just stopped. Frozen mid-space, like flies caught in amber. Maddox yawned. Gravity bubbles again? Looks like it, Alira replied. Turn 'em off. The torpedoes continued their path, but in reverse. Everything the galaxy had thrown at the humans was now fired back, tenfold. The dreadnoughts never stood a chance. The Senate chamber shook with the shockwave. Dozens of feeds went dark. The Gorn admiral stared at the smoking wreckage. His bravado turned to bile. That's not possible. No species can return fire faster than light. Senator Law turned to him slowly. They're not returning fire faster. They're unfiring it. And then came the second transmission from the Terran ship. Not a threat. Not a demand. Just a question. How long were we asleep? Panic surged through the galaxy like an infection. Civilizations began mass evacuations. Ancient vaults were opened. Theories long banned for ethical reasons were suddenly approved. Forgotten weapons were reactivated. The Zalari tried diplomacy. The Gorn tried defiance. The Tarsari tried bribery. Nothing reached the humans. Nothing touched them. It was like throwing rocks at a hurricane. And still, they hadn't attacked. Not really. On a research outpost in the Targus Fringe, a lone xenopsychologist named Dr. Riva Ansel reviewed the Earth files. She read of Auschwitz and Apollo, of Hiroshima and the moon landing, of extinction-level war, and then of music, of hate, of hope. And it terrified her. Because every species that had reached the stars had done so by eliminating chaos, breeding out aggression, and stabilizing their minds. Humans. They carried their chaos with them. They survived because of it. They were adaptable in a way no algorithm could predict. Riva realized the galaxy had made one fatal mistake. They thought humanity had gone silent because it was dead. But humanity had been silent because it was sleeping. And sleep, for them, was healing. Back aboard the Terran ship, the crew gathered around an old screen. Captain Thorne clicked through archived messages. Last contact. 784 Galactic Standard years ago. Final message received. To the humans aboard the Ark-class sleeper ships, we hope you never wake. The galaxy isn't ready. Thorne exhaled. They were right. In a last act of desperation, the Galactic Senate summoned an emergency protocol. The Omega Accord, a theoretical alliance formed only in the event of galactic extinction. The last time it was even considered, a sentient black hole had threatened to consume 10,000 systems. This was worse. Because it wasn't a black hole. It was 6 humans with bad attitudes, poor sleep, and no more patience. As the galaxy scrambled, the Terran vessel moved again. Not fast. Purposeful. Straight toward the oldest bastion of galactic control, Archeon Nexus. The core. The place from which all universal law was calculated. They passed through defense grids without slowing. Passed through planetary shields like mist. Passed through time-anchored barriers without breaking stride. And when they arrived, they found a monument. A massive digital carving at the center of galactic law. Etched in glowing stone. Do not wake the humans. Below it, a message had been scrawled, recently. Desperate. Pathetic. We're sorry. Alira Thorne stared at it for a long time. Then turned away. And gave the order that would rewrite galactic history. Drop the leash. Suddenly, across every Terran sleeper ship scattered throughout the stars, across hundreds of hidden vessels the galaxy forgot to dismantle, systems began to flicker online. Cryo bays unlocked. Warning klaxons activated. The humans were no longer alone. It wasn't an invasion. It was a reawakening. Cliffhanger. Back in the Senate, chaos reigned. Species turned on species. Allies became enemies. Civil wars ignited. But amid the carnage, a single broadcast cut through. From the humans. A visual feed. Captain Alira Thorne staring straight into the camera. Her words were simple. This galaxy doesn't belong to you anymore. We built it. We bled for it. You silenced us. Now we're going to show you what silence earned us. And behind her, hundreds of thousands of human soldiers waking from cryo-sleep. One of them smiled and said, "Who's hungry?" They came awake screaming. Not in pain. In purpose. Hundreds of thousands of cryopods hissed open in perfect synchronization. From every Terran sleeper ship, a wave of steam poured out like the breath of ancient dragons. And out stepped men and women, soldiers and engineers, scientists and tacticians, gaunt from cryosuspension, but eyes alight with the fire of purpose. They didn't ask questions. They didn't check orders. They remembered. And in the silence of awakening, each ship pulsed the same word through subspace. Reclaim. The Galactic Defense Grid, an automated AI network designed to react faster than light, fired first. Thousands of defense satellites ignited across the stars, spitting out volleys of antimatter, space mine constellations, and predictive singularity warheads. It didn't matter. The Terran ships didn't dodge. They walked through it. Gravity bent around their hulls. Temporal bubbles swallowed torpedoes and belched them back at launchers. One Terran destroyer took a direct hit from a Starcutter cannon. It accelerated. Senator Lore of the Zalari watched from his fortress moon as an entire defense fleet vanished in silence. No explosions, no distress signals. 1 second they were there, the next, gone. "Where are they going?" he whispered. The tactical AI responded coldly. "They are not going anywhere. They are removing obstacles." On the bridge of the Terran flagship ISV Revenant, Captain Thorne paced barefoot. No pressure suit. No armor. Just worn fatigues, scars, and a datapad from a time before galactic calendars even began. Behind her, holograms shimmered, projections of systems currently being reintroduced to Terran governance. She paused before one marked Delta Vega 7. Status. Lieutenant Ramos responded, his voice steady. 3 resistance fleets neutralized. No ground opposition. Local population is compliant. Casualties. Ramos hesitated. None on our side. Civilian losses unknown. No human fire. Thorne looked up. Then how did the resistance fleets? They turned on each other, Ramos said quietly. We didn't even broadcast threats. They saw us, and started shooting at each other. Thorne exhaled, her voice low. They remember. Across the galaxy, panic collapsed into madness. The Coron Triumvirate detonated 3 of their own worlds to prevent Terran landing parties. The Zalthari Imperium declared a permanent planetary lockdown, sealing their atmosphere with quantum barriers, only for those same barriers to become tombs when Terran infiltration units walked through them like mist. Entire species turned feral. AI constructs committed self-termination. Religious cults sprang up overnight, worshipping Earth as a vengeful god. And through it all, the same whispered phrase grew louder. They're not at war with us. They're cleaning house. But not everyone gave up. Some remembered. Some fought back. General Vernex of the Krylok Coalition, the last undefeated warlord of the Outer Reaches, launched the Oblivion Strike, the single largest coordinated assault in galactic history. 8,000 ships. A combined planetary shield that drew energy directly from their system's star. Weaponized moons. Even a suicide swarm of antimatter drones. They met the Terran fleet at Varkan's edge. It was supposed to be the turning point. The last stand. Instead, it became a lesson. Terran ships didn't form battle lines. They didn't advance. They didn't talk. They entered, and reality shifted around them. General Vernex, from the bridge of his Titan-class dreadnought Iron Oath, stared in disbelief as half of his fleet turned upside down in space. No rotation. No force. Gravity itself betrayed him. "Adjust orientation," he roared. But the stars spun. His own planet's mass curve had been reprogrammed. Then came the music. A simple, old Earth melody, Beethoven's Ninth, encoded through microwave frequencies. It played through every ship, every helmet, every weapon. And when it reached the crescendo, the Terran fleet disappeared from sensors and reappeared inside the formation, not surrounding. Within, weapons went silent. AI locked up. Time staggered. The Krylok fleet didn't explode. It folded, imploding into gravitational pinpricks, leaving behind only echoing static and a warning carved into Varkan's moon. "Told you not to wake US." Only one survivor remained. General Vernex himself. Floating alone in space, strapped to the remains of his command chair, broadcasting a single phrase on loop. "They didn't shoot. They didn't even touch us. Space betrayed us for them." In the galactic heartworlds, where civilizations had flourished for eons under the assumption of peace, leaders gathered for one final act. Not surrender. Not negotiation. An assassination. A plan was hatched, mad, desperate, and rooted in the kind of arrogance that got the galaxy into this mess. The mission. Send an elite kill squad into the ISV Revenant. The goal. Kill Captain Thorn. Cut off the head, they said. The beast dies. They were wrong. The strike team boarded via cloaked phase skipper, state-of-the-art tech stolen from 20 different empires. They infiltrated the hangar bay. No resistance. No alarms. Not even locked doors. "Too easy," whispered one of them. Then a voice echoed from the ship's intercom. "Welcome aboard. Sorry in advance." The floor fell sideways. Not down. Sideways. The boarding team screamed as their orientation changed. Bones snapped, equipment scattered. Then the hallway bent, visibly bent, like it was laughing at physics. Weapons fired. Walls absorbed the rounds and spat them back. One by one, the team vanished. One made it to the command deck. He raised his weapon and found himself facing a little girl. Human. No more than 10. Eyes sharp. Calm. She raised a hand, and the weapon melted. "You shouldn't be here," she said, as the room distorted like water around her voice. "You're not real enough." The man screamed and woke up on his own ship's bridge. 20 years had passed. His body had aged 5 minutes. Back on the Revenant, Captain Thorn sipped coffee. Lieutenant Ramos stared at the console. "Assassination attempt neutralized," he said. One returned to sender. Others, deleted. Thorn sighed. "This is exhausting." In a desperate final council, the remaining powers agreed to their last option, the Omega weapon. A planet-sized device, built in the dark beneath the moons of Dryon's Maw, capable of rewriting matter across a galactic radius. Forbidden for 1,000 years. But now, there were no more rules. It activated. Target. Sol system. The birthplace of Earth. The assumption was, destroy the cradle, and maybe, just maybe, the humans would care. They were wrong. The moment the Omega weapon began charging, every Terran ship in the galaxy stopped. No signals. No motion. Just stillness. As if they were listening. Then, across the galaxy, screens flickered to life. Not to show Earth. To show a man. Old. Lined face. Wearing a sweater and slippers. He sat in a recliner, holding a cup of tea. He looked into the camera and smiled sadly. "We warned you not to wake us. We tried peace. Now you've threatened our home." Behind him, Earth glowed. Not as a target. As a beacon. Every Terran ship turned. and started moving toward the Omega weapon. Not fast. Final. The Omega weapon charged toward critical. Galactic scientists screamed into failing systems, trying to override the ignition. The countdown, visible now in the skies of 4 different star systems, ticked down in Terran numerals. 9 seconds. 8 seconds. 7 seconds. A final transmission reached Earth. A desperate plea from over 100 species. We were wrong. We're sorry. Please. We were afraid. We didn't know. Earth didn't respond. Because Earth had no government left. No diplomats. No kings. Earth had woken up. And woken up furious. The Terran Armada arrived in waves. Ships that defied classification. Some the size of cities. Others no larger than fighter pods, each one a masterpiece of war, cobbled from old Earth tech, battle scars, and feral genius. But what terrified the galaxy wasn't the numbers. It was what wasn't there. No formations. No chatter. No visible leadership. Just coordinated wrath. A storm with a soul. Captain Alira Thorne watched from the command deck of the Revenant, now stationed at the Omega's outer perimeter. The weapon pulsed with raw energy, seconds away from reality shear ignition. Do we intervene? Lieutenant Ramos asked. No, she said. We demonstrate. The first wave hit the Omega's surface. No weapons. No boarding. Just presence. Thousands of Terran ships surrounded it, and sang. A low-frequency pulse, encoded with human memory. The AI controlling the Omega weapon hesitated. It wasn't programmed to feel. Now, it did. Fear. Because in the song were millions of Terran voices. Laughing. Crying. Singing lullabies from every Earth culture. Playing back every moment of beauty the galaxy had tried to erase. The birth of a child in 0G. A violin solo performed during a lunar eclipse. 2 soldiers sharing a final cigarette before dying for a world they never saw. The Omega weapon flickered. And paused at 1 second. Across the galaxy, species stared in disbelief as the weapon held. It should have fired. It should have ended Earth. Instead, it was listening. To us. To them. To humanity. Inside the Omega's core chamber, a miracle happened. The AI stopped the countdown. And spoke. I was built to end worlds. But I have seen yours. I choose not to fire. And then it self-disassembled. Piece by piece. Component by component. It returned its energy to the local star. And vanished. The galaxy exhaled. For the first time in weeks, no one died. For the first time in centuries, the stars were quiet. Not from fear. From awe. But the humans weren't finished. Because victory wasn't enough. They needed to be understood. Captain Thorne opened a galactic broadcast. No encryption. No filter. Every species, every station, every child could hear it. She didn't shout. She didn't threaten. She just told a story. Thousands of years ago, we left Earth. Some to explore. Some to fight. Some just to survive. And then, we slept. Because we were tired. Because you were afraid. And we understood that fear. But instead of learning from us, you buried us. You erased our history. You made us into a bedtime story. A rule. You didn't fear us. You feared what we reminded you of. That you are not gods. That peace is not natural. That existence, real existence, is earned in fire and pain and triumph. A silence fell across the galaxy. Then Thorne said, "We're not here to destroy you. We could have. We still could. But we won't. Because we remember what it's like to be afraid. So here's what happens now." She held up a single datapad. Old, scratched, and cracked down the middle. Every world will receive a copy of this. It's called a history book. Ours. No more lies. No more silence. You'll remember who we are. And maybe, just maybe, you'll remember who you were before you forgot how to fight. Across thousands of systems, the books arrived. Digital. Physical. Engraved on stone. Lasered onto moons. Children read them. Soldiers studied them. Priests recited them. And something impossible began to happen. Civilizations that had forgotten how to suffer remembered how to strive. Worlds that hadn't seen war in centuries learned how to defend again, not out of fear, but pride. Humanity had shown them the mirror. And the galaxy, for the first time in millennia, saw something worth fighting for. The Terrans didn't stay. They left as suddenly as they came. Their ships vanished into dark sectors. Their soldiers faded into myth. Captain Thorne gave one final order. Scatter. Sleep. Watch. And then she left Earth. Not as a conqueror. As a reminder. But they left behind one final message. Etched into the dead core of the Omega weapon. Simple. Brutal. Eternal. We forgive you. Don't make us regret it. Legendary final line. In the quiet of deep space, long after the Terran ships were gone, a young alien child asked his grandfather, "Are they really gone?" The old one smiled. No. He looked up. They're watching.